It's the WOW Show, Women on Women. I'm Shazmin Shamsuddin.
I'm Joanne Tampopo.
And as you know, if you've got children under the age of 19, they're online, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about today: cyberbullying, online grooming, and child protection in the digital age. Okay, because with everyone going into your DM, sliding in there, our children are at risk. You know, they're vulnerable.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So with us today, we've got Dr. Shamir Rajadurai, crime prevention specialist. He's a co-founder of Prevent Crime Now. He has advised and lectured for key national agencies, including PDRM, the Royal Malaysian Customs, TUDM, and various regulatory bodies. His work empowers clients to anticipate criminal techniques, understanding criminals, and implement cost-effective prevention strategies that work in the real world. And also with us is Saskia Blume. She's the Chief of Child Protection at UNICEF, with deep expertise in child rights, migration, and social work systems. She leads initiatives to strengthen protection for vulnerable children globally and in Malaysia, and advocates for inclusive services and stronger support for frontline social workers. Welcome to the WOW Show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Dr. Shamir, let's start with you, yeah? Many people think cyberbullying is just mean comments and teasing online, but how bad is the problem here? Really?
So that's the base of it, right? Oh, you look stupid, something like that. That's the base of it. But it can get even worse than that. Sometimes what some people do is that they create a separate page. I hate Shaz. Right? And everybody just goes there and then they bombard, they say mean things about you. And then also you got maybe people impersonating you online and doing other things. I just take your picture and I say I'm Shaz, and I go comment another picture. I go to comment to Joanne's one, hey, you look stupid. And then both of you all start fighting for nothing, right? So when it comes to cyberbullying, it takes many forms. But something as simple as just calling you stupid online is the start of a lot of things. Right?
And as we saw in recent years, it has led to bigger social issues,
Yes.
As we've seen in the news with one influencer who actually took her own life because of all the cyberbullying.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Of course, some people say, if if she cannot take it, don't be on this space, right? That's not the right thing to say, right? Because we should have things where, first of all, we have to educate our children that, hey, just because you're online doesn't mean you can say things without consequences, right? And also that why people do it is that because there is no real way of, I wouldn't say tracking the person down, but they can say it without the need to fight you, right? If I say it to your face now, Joanne's going to punch me, right? But if I say it online, she's not going to take the trouble to drive to my house to punch me, right? So that's
she might.
She might.
But these are people that perhaps or people who are masquerading as people that most kids are also on different platforms as well. Gaming platforms.
Yes.
So they are susceptible to not only children of their own age group, but people from different countries, different age group, different lifestyle, and everything is out there. There is no filter, especially when they're playing games.
Correct, exactly. I think one thing that you brought up is very interesting is that there is no filter, right? There is not a thing that's going to cut off a comment just because I'm using a bad word or foul language, right? So that's the problem, right? We talk about freedom of speech, freedom to express yourself, right? But where does that line draw? Right, so that's the problem we have as well when it comes to this. The interesting thing about gaming platforms is that, I used to game and I understand it that it's really nice when you actually build that bond. But the problem is also that when you are a noob in the space, they call it noobs, right? You're a beginner in that space and just suddenly you get picked on by everyone else. And it's something, being online is sometimes an escape for a lot of people.
Yes.
Right? And suddenly when that escape becomes polluted, then that becomes a place now, okay, where do I go next? I don't have anywhere else. Then it gets to you mentally as well.
The thing is, when you're on these platforms, when you're and a lot of people take gaming very seriously. A lot of kids take gaming very seriously to a point that they're not going to tell anything that's been happening online to their parents.
Of course, because that's their space, right?
That's their space.
Yeah.
Like even with normal school session, even if you're being bullied, we're not even typing
bullied to your face,
bullied
kind of
to your
physical
face. Sometimes it's very difficult for the child to come back and tell the parent why.
Also, I have to say this, because just say now, somebody comes and tells you, oh, my child comes and tells, oh, I'm being bullied and almost, I was like, stop playing lah. Right? Stop playing, right? So that's what most parents do when their children come and complain. Or then just don't go on the website. Why are you still on the website? Go do something else. Why are you wasting time playing games? Right? That's the reaction they get. Instead of actually finding ways on how do we now move from that or handle that or take that. A few things also you have to realize. Being online, sometimes you have to be a bit thick-skinned as well. You must realize just words that some people say. Right? So, if you cannot take that, first thing you do, report that person. That's the first thing. All these platforms have reporting mechanisms, right? So report it, and you see if more people report it, maybe that person's profile might be taken down. So those are some steps that you can take actually to help mitigate these kind of things.
What are your thoughts on all of this, Saskia?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about cyberbullying, right? But also, I think we had Joanna Joseph on the show before, right?
Yes.
And she really talked about how, and she was so brave. It was fantastic to listen to her. And she really talked about how cyberbullying led to her, her self-confidence being completely eroded, and then grooming, right?
Yeah, grooming as well.
And
it leads to grooming.
Yeah, and so I think it's really underestimated what a huge issue this is. And grooming in particular. So UNICEF did a research on child sexual exploitation and abuse online 2 years ago. With Interpol was involved, and ECPAD, and we had MCMC and Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development supporting us with that. Just to say that 4% of children reported that they had experienced online sexual exploitation and abuse. So 4% of children in Malaysia. Which actually is like 1 in 25 children. So you go into any Malaysian classroom, you have 1 or 2 children that have experienced this. So it's a much bigger issue. I think it's very underestimated, like the scale of it.
I mean, who's doing the grooming? With regards to the cyberbullying that's happening, is it other children? Is it also adults? I know this seems like a really kind of weird question, but in the case of Joanna Joseph, it was another older kid who was, targeting her in the grooming sense.
Yeah, I think it's a mix, right?
Yeah.
So what falls on, it's grooming, but it's also like sharing your sexual images without your consent, right? So a lot of kids, maybe they will share a sexual image of themselves with someone they trust, right? And then they don't have control over it afterwards. So I think that's something where really awareness needs to kick in about, sharing your images, the control you have over your own images. So that could involve even people you thought you were friends with, or, your ex-partner.
Right.
And then it goes all the way to people you've never met.
Because once that image is out there, it's kind of a free for all, isn't it?
Yeah. So it goes from sharing images to sextortion to actually like the online and offline, what we see more and more. It's not like they're 2 separate spaces, right? So you can meet somebody online that then you meet offline, and the abuse can actually happen in person, and vice versa. So it's really fluid. I think young people these days, they don't see it as so separate. It's like, it's a continuum for them. The life is online and offline. So I think it's really about making kids strong, whether it's offline or online, to stand up for themselves.
Right. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I spent a bit of time with groomers. And what's...
What?
Groomers.
No, you guys know my background. So,
Yeah.
So what happened was, when I spent time to learn from them, a few things I realized, right? One, first of all, I think as Malaysians, we need to understand, and Saskia has done a lot of work in this space, but we need to understand Malaysia is a society that's gatal. First of all, you need to understand that, right? I think with the most recent thing that we've seen, you had 11,000 members in a group that was sharing pictures of school children, right? And this was a group on Facebook.
It was a group out there
In the open.
People only realized after they were caught.
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is the biggest problem in Malaysia, is that this group has been active for years. If you look at the group, I think they were active for 10 years. Openly. Only reason why it got shut down, celebrities made noise. Right? Until then, nobody got shut down. And these guys are openly 12,000 people over there commenting on all this, right? But here's the thing which I learned from groomers, is that first of all, like we said, they target your insecurities. Second, they target the fact that they are going to try to get in between the gap of you and your parents. Hey, don't tell your parents about us. Your parents won't understand. Talk to me. I understand. You're going through this. Oh my God, don't worry. You're beautiful. No, don't care what people say. They call you fat. No, you're beautiful to me. And then they suddenly realize, oh my God, this person is there. Right? I think there was a report many years ago that Malaysia was one of the top countries in Southeast Asia which were consumers of child pornography. One of the top countries.
It's actually a top 10, right?
Yeah.
Top 10 globally.
Top 10 globally. Oh my God.
For child sexual abuse material.
Child sexual abuse
whether
material.
it's uploaded or shared.
So how can a guardian or a parent, be able to? I wouldn't say stop because it's ongoing.
Yeah.
How then can we be relevant in trying to make sure that there are safeguards that could protect our children? Because for a woman like me who's always on the go, we are working, and a lot of moms work, father work. So by the time we actually go home, all right, and that's of course the helper and all, children are left on their own until like 7, 8, and that's like they come back from school at 2. That's from 2 to 8.
Yeah, they're not supervised online.
I mean, you can supervise them if it's a meeting or whatsoever. But we're talking about online, and they have so many outputs: WhatsApp group, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram.
I think there are 3 main parties here that need to work very closely. The first are the schools. You know, schools don't have modules to teach children what grooming is. The problem is a lot of schools don't understand what grooming is. You know, I've approached schools and say, hey, would you like to do this program? No, it's okay. I say, are your teachers trained in this? No, we are not, but it's not something we want to touch on. Why? Sensitive. Exactly. Right? Why? It's a thing because most of us, when we grow up, our parents have no idea what grooming is, have no idea what pedophilia is, right? That's why you see don't forget, the world's worst pedophile was caught in Malaysia. Not Malaysian, but was caught in Malaysia. Right? After he was caught, they went to the families and told, do you know this guy did this to your children? No, he wouldn't have done such a thing to my kids. Right? So they don't understand the concept of it. So first of all, schools need to update their modules, teach children, look, these kind of things, this is what groomer does. Teachers need to be updated, students need to be updated. Second would be parents. Parents, the most important thing that you need to do for your children is to build their confidence. The main reason why girls or boys become victims, especially when they sit down with these groomers online, because they lack that confidence. These groomers give them that confidence. Oh yes, I am beautiful. Yes, I'm better than who people say I am online. So build their confidence. The third would be the agencies in Malaysia to actually shut down all these pedophiles. Your IP gets traced to a pedophilic website or any pedophilic content, shut it down. Why are we not taking action? Don't forget what Malaysia did last time. I'm not sure if you all remember this. There was a Malaysian who was caught overseas with child pornographic material, right? And what did we do to him when he came back to Malaysia? We gave him a second scholarship. That's what we did.
I remember.
Yes. So I'm not saying, okay, fine. They say, it's a bright student. No, give the scholarship to somebody else. Why did we have to reward him?
Why are we rewarding him?
Why are we rewarding that behavior, right? So that's the thing. Our mindset, the way we do things is a bit messed up sometimes.
So you mentioned that agencies should, update their system and all that, and especially school. In terms of how UNICEF does it, how are you working with our local ministries and agencies to push that envelope to make sure that these are topics that we need to talk about?
UNICEF here in Malaysia works really closely with the different government agencies that are involved in this. And there's certainly a lot that needs to be done. We're actually gearing up this year. There will be, as Malaysia's hosting ASEAN, the ASEAN ICT Forum on Child Online Protection will be hosted here in Malaysia. And so this is something that UNICEF supports in different countries. And that's the point where, you get industry together and lawmakers together and organizations like UNICEF and NGOs and also young people. And I think that is something that is really overlooked, is the voice of young people and the experience of young people. So in terms of, when we make policy decisions, when we make decisions on how to regulate industry, we do need to consult and listen to young people, because they have the first-hand experience. All of us sitting here, I mean, you were a gamer, but we don't necessarily have that, right? And their insight is so important. And when we were consulting young people this year, actually, to prepare for the forum as well, they're very clear on what they wanted. And it was 3 things. And one relates to what you were saying. One is the reporting mechanisms. Yes, they do exist, but are they child-friendly? Are they easy to navigate? Are they easy to find? Do you get feedback on what happens after you report? So there was a huge lack, and a lot of young people sharing that they were dissatisfied with the response, right? And secondly, it's safety by design. So safety by design, what does that mean in practice? So you could, for example, have a pop-up, window that as you're uploading certain images, it's like, are you sure you want to upload to this person, or you want to share this with this person? There could be like safety reminders. So just to have like little nudges, and young people themselves, that would actually be helpful for them, right? And I think the third thing is that, and this is more UNICEF, not necessarily coming from young people directly, but what we see is, yes, there is obligation to take down, for example, child sexual abuse materials, but not obligation to proactively detect and to proactively take down, right? A report is made as a platform provider, you're supposed to take it down. But are you actually looking for the images yourself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because like if there was a system in place where you, an agency get highlighted that, hey, there's like what you say, that Facebook group have been on for 10 years.
Disgusting.
Yeah, but still it was on. And if that's on, there are other subgroups.
On Telegram, on WhatsApp.
These groups are not going to stop.
Yeah.
But how do we then, is there even a department to track this?
Well,
we are all living in an
department.
AI age.
Yeah.
So it should become easier and not harder.
That's something very interesting. Like, it should become easier,
It
right?
should.
Like what Saskia said, right? Are we actively looking out? We wait for reports to come, then we take action.
Exactly. So perhaps the way is not to wait for reports to come, to actually have a group sanctioned by our departments to actually actively going out there to trace.
I would say that actually comes back to a service provider. I just say Facebook. Facebook should have their protocols in place that the minute they see something like this being uploaded, it should be taken down.
Oh no, but they do it when you like do other things. How many we've done it before. The last couple of months, Meta is like, you say something sensitive, we're going to shut you down. But that group is not.
But also because here's the problem with it, right? Meta is not locally, and this is the problem a lot of platforms. They don't recognize the local lingo. Right? It's a global company. So when we type, especially in different languages, imagine.
Or slang.
And sometimes when we speak also, we speak 3 languages.
Correct.
Right? In one sentence. Right? So it doesn't catch those words. And our spelling might be different. Sometimes we say tanah, we just put X na. So, it's not proper spelling also, right?
Yeah.
So that's why those systems have not been able to adopt
they bypass it.
They bypass it because it's not locally customized. We have to customize it locally. Right? So everything that has to be done, when we talk about crime as well, there has to be localization. We can look at global things, but everything has to be localized. Right? If not, UNICEF can just sit on where, Saskia doesn't have to come all the way to Malaysia. She's here because she wants to localize things, right? Yeah, so that's why you have to localize stuff.
Okay, let's come back to the home, and talk about prevention. Shamir, how can parents recognize red flags and know something's wrong, something's going on with their kid?
First thing, don't give your kid a tablet or a laptop until they're 30 years old.
You cannot do that. People are giving it to them at 5. All right, at 5.
No, but a few things which I think is very important. One is that you have to actually install proper antiviruses. That's one. 2, I think perfect time to bring this up. Myself and my team, we're actually developing an app to help parents actually detect this sort of thing. So what happens is that the app will be installed into the child's phone and the parent's phone. And when the app detects any form of anomaly or any form of grooming language in the child phone, it notifies the parent immediately.
Okay.
So that's something in development. It might take maybe, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have something up.
Awesome.
But it's mainly to detect any form of grooming or bullying or child kidnapping or anything of that
Can you
sort.
give us some examples of grooming language?
Okay. It can be as simple as, hey, have you spoken about sex before? Right, that's the first one. And then no, it's a taboo subject. No, it's important for you. You're 15 years old. This is the time for you to explore. And why it's important? Because if you don't know these sort of things, then you're not going to be able to explore these sort of things when you're later on. These are not things that you should be shy about. It should be things that you should feel great about because you're such a beautiful girl. Why would you want to hide this beauty?
It's so cringy, right?
It's cringy for you.
It makes my skin
It's cringy
crawl.
for you. But imagine a girl who doesn't have that confidence.
Yeah, correct.
Suddenly this guy who maybe is, it's not even his real face. He's used the filter to touch up and all. And he's
Someone
telling this
from
girl,
BTS.
and he's telling this girl, you're beautiful. Don't care what people say. I think you're beautiful. I've never seen such an angelic figure in my life before.
Okay.
So you fall for it. And don't forget, if older people, we speak about scams. Older people fall for this kind of language. What about teens? What about kids?
So if your child is being groomed in this manner, what are some behavioral
To look out
for?
One is that if suddenly being secretive.
Okay.
Right? Actually, first thing as parents, I think you need to realize this. Your kids will always lie to you. Please remember that. Your kids will lie to you.
No kid is going to say that. I tell my mom everything.
A 40-year-old man just, texted me.
So that's one thing you have to realize. And I think as parents, as much we want to respect their privacy, you have to understand it's okay to spy on your kids because at the end of the day, it's more important for them to be safe than be sorry.
Correct.
Right? Your job as a parent, simple. Protect your kids. Nothing else. Full stop.
That's the thing. We want to be able to protect our kids.
Yeah. Spy
but
on them.
Also,
don't trust them.
That's the thing.
Spy on the kids,
There's
man.
of course another school of concept to say that you must trust your kids enough. Okay. That's because as of course I have an older teen, which is 18, 19, 20, and these are age when they'll come back and if you ask a lot of questions, the first thing and they always do is you don't trust me. You do not trust me enough to make my own decisions. So as a parent, you're okay, you can't do it the old school way. The old school way is spy on your kids.
Okay.
So how do we do this now?
Okay, so as parents, I'm not a parent, so I have to ask you.
Wait, you got a parent
Are you a parent?
16 years after that, you tell me.
Okay.
You tell me.
Now let me ask you as a parent, right? Would you rather spy on your child or have your child be a victim?
Of course, I'd rather spy.
If I might chime in here, I think that's a bit. I don't think it's one or the other, right? I don't think it's one or the other because I think it's impossible to control everything our children do, whether it's online or offline, right? And I think there has to be some trust, right? Even if when they're crazy teenagers. But I think the most important thing is to have this relationship where they know. When they have a bad feeling about something, ideally before it happens, even if it happens after, when they come to you afterwards, that they know they can confide in you. That you're going to be the person that's going to be I told you so, But you listen first. You try to solve the issue with them. Because going back to the research, that we did, half of all the children in that research did not tell anyone that this happened to them. Half of all the children.
How are you going to tell if let's say you are undermined by your parents' constant eyeballing because everything you do that's wrong comes back to your fault because it's very Asian parenting.
Very Asian parenting. I told you right, don't do right.
Don't do. Come on, we live in an Asian world. Okay, we don't have Mat Saleh parents that are Oprah Winfrey. It's no, come to me. But you want to let your child know that if anything happens in that group, you could be that one mother that can deal with all of this. Because even if your mom can't or your friend's mom can't, that you want to be that cool mom. I'm not saying me, but there needs to be one adult, even if it's a teacher or even if it's you, let's say, you know, an uncle or an older brother or older cousin, like, you know, they're more comfortable to talk to say, okay, I got this. How?
You know, I'm just going to be a devil's advocate a little bit over here. You know, I unfortunately, due to the work that I do, I not only sit down with offenders, I've sat down with a lot of victims as well. And sometimes, you know, when you sit down with the victims and you ask them, you know, what could have been done or what could have been done, you know, just say, you know, I just hope someone had you know, intervened at some point of time. So, and that's why I say, right, when I sit down with offenders, I also understand because parents have given kids this trust, freedom, that's the thing that they manipulate. Of course, it's not easy. We cannot spy on everything they do. I'm not saying, you know, step into everything they do. I'm saying spy on them. Just don't say anything until it's time to intervene.
Yes.
At least you know what's going on. You know what? And here's the thing. And this is why I say this. I've been and sat down with people in juvie. Right? I feel very sad every time I go to juvie because these are kids who have lost their lives. Because you are put in prison for a mistake you've made. You know, it can be as simple as, you know, just going out with my friends or bicycle ajak. You know, and you didn't know, as a parent, you didn't know because, I'm like I said, it's okay to spy, but step in when you need to step in. Don't everything, don't do. No, let them.
They're going to do anyway.
They're going to do anyway, but at least you're aware on when to step in. Right? That's my thing about this, right?
Yeah.
You have cases in being Asian parents and all, you have cases like, oh, you know, I come to you and I tell you something, first thing you do, you get on slap, and then I told you, right, who asked you not to listen to me, right? But it's better to, I would want to say again, I'm going to play a devil's advocate over here. It's better to lose that sense of trust from your kids than to have your kids go through what a lot of victims have gone through, right?
But what happens once you lose the trust, right? I mean, I will also play devil's advocate on my corner, but I think, I mean, one is, I don't think, again, you can't prevent everything. And technology keeps on, you know, we have the AI generated child sexual abuse images now. I mean, there's going to be new things all the time. I don't think there's any technology that will be able to keep pace with that. And so I do think there's so much, I think safety starts with having conversations and having a trusting, a trusted adult that you can turn to.
I totally agree with that. Back then, if I think our parents came to spoke to us about pedophiles and all, they didn't understand it, so it's difficult for them to share that with us, right? Yeah. You know, I remember my parents used to say, don't go into a room alone with an adult. From young, they taught us that don't go, it doesn't matter, uncle, auntie, don't go into a room alone with an adult. From young, we were taught that.
Yeah, you know? But were you taught why? I think at this moment, with this generation, all right, we are thinking about our generation when our parents would tell us that.
I'm one generation below you.
Yeah.
He's not a second
younger than me.
He's not as young as he looks.
Yeah, exactly. No, but okay, you know, they say that because for them to talk about pedophile and grooming and all that is very, number one, taboo. Number two, they don't know how to tell it because they were not taught.
Yeah, they don't have the vocabulary, I think, and the sensitivity.
Children now, and I'm talking about my daughter's generation, which is like, she's going to be 20 this week, right? She was the one that came up to me and told me about grooming. She's like, when we were watching TV, and she said, Mom, this is how they groom that. So don't. So she knows without even me talking to her about pedophilia, about grooming, because it's all on TV, you know, but they picked up and they're not, and this generation, they're not afraid to ask the questions because in our generation, whatever questions that we ask that our parents cannot answer, we get tight slapped. But now we are not allowed to slap them. We are like, well, all right, let's discuss this.
That said, how early should conversations like this be starting, Saskia? Maybe
very early.
Yeah, how old?
Because you don't need to have age appropriate conversations, right? Like for example, safe touch. It's like something that you can teach a child when they're very young. You don't have to necessarily at that point tell them why, of course, right? But it's like, what makes you feel comfortable? What makes you feel uncomfortable? You have the right to say no to something that makes you feel uncomfortable. You can start with children in kindergarten.
We can start, but the school system. That's the other thing which I picked up as well. You say like you wanted to go into schools to talk to them, and especially at 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
There's so many things that as people who want to prevent what you call it, sexual misconduct, scammers, grooming. These are so important. But of course, it's a ministry level. Yeah. If the ministry say, okay, you cannot talk about safe sex, you cannot talk about grooming, you cannot talk about pedophilia. But this is how our children are not, how would I say, they are not, it's not learned. That's another word. Sorry, my brain is a little bit. But if schools or if parents do not talk to them about these things, because they are at that age where it's so easy to be manipulated.
Yeah.
But at least if they know, like if they safeguard, like your parents say, very simple. Don't go into a room with an adult, no matter what.
Yeah.
So in your mind, you're scared, man.
Yep.
Because like you don't know what's going to happen, but all you know that, my father say cannot. And the fear is that if you do, he's going to go back and give you whack you. So the fear is there. But now our kids are not living with that fear because we don't use the old punishment like how we used to. So these conversations is very important. Safe touch and as young as 5, honestly. Because
agree.
looking at everything that's going, so how do we then?
I think at the end of the
do
day,
this?
right? Like you said, the onus is on the parents. I mean, you've got to take some responsibility with these conversations, as well as getting that trust going with your child. We can't rely on schools and the government and UNICEF to save our kids and to have these conversations, even though it's great if the schools would allow programs such as yours to come in and educate, inform, and just make children aware of what's what, and the dangers that lurk.
Yeah. I do think it's a mix, right? I mean, parents have a very important role to play. Or as you were saying earlier, right? Any other adult person, like be that person for other kids as well. You don't have to be the parent necessarily. But I think earlier you were asking also about like what can industry do, and I think the kind of knee-jerk reaction is like, let's keep our children off the playground rather than let's make the playground safer to be in, right? And so I think there's so much to be done to make the internet a safer place for children. I mean, 1 in 3 internet users is a child. And child safeguarding is then still an afterthought, although from the very get-go, we should be designing everything with children in mind, because inevitably there will be end consumers and users.
Now, many feel that agencies like MCMC need to step up. What is your feeling on that, Shamir?
Yes, they do. They do. I think, again, like we spoke about, only when there's a report, suddenly they are taking action, right? We spoke about being proactive about this kind of thing. So the biggest problem, I think, with these agencies is that you don't have people there who understand these sort of trends, or you don't have people that understand crime in these sort of spaces. So you have people who maybe understand cybersecurity, right? But do they understand crime? They don't. And that's why these kind of things can prevalently happen, right? So that's why they need to also, go through courses which they understand, okay, what type of crime is happening, the psyche of criminals, pedophiles, and all, so that they understand what to look out for. At the moment, it's just all cybersecurity stuff.
Yeah, so, at the moment, I think the highlight is cybersecurity. So does UNICEF has, work with other regulators besides MCMC?
Yeah, I mean, globally and in other countries at ASEAN level, I mean, definitely, because it is the most important frontier if you think about child online protection, right?
Could then be this other agency and regulators come into Malaysia to perhaps give a working, I don't know, I don't know at what at that levels, but could all these foreign regulators come in to actually make enough impact so that our ministries can then use them as
I just like that, but maybe when we talk about foreign entities coming in just to help on this, I think there's pros and cons to this whole thing, right? The biggest pro is that, okay, we understand what are some of the best case, best things that work. And I'm sure UNICEF has done a lot of that. But the downside to the whole thing is that then it's not localized. The thing is that we need to understand is how locals do these sort of things. Crime in every country is different. Every region is different.
Correct.
I've spent time in a lot of these countries. It's very different.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you say need to localize, right?
You need to localize
But you see, we don't even have that platform or department to even, know what's going on. So shouldn't we get a team from overseas? If let's say UNICEF,
but they have to work with locals.
they will have to work with
how
local.
to localize it.
Of course. We have to bring it here and then localize it so they can, because what we are doing is we need to protect our local, what do you call it, our children that are here.
Yeah.
So you need to localize it.
Yeah.
But right now, we don't even have that system to...
I would like to say we have the systems. It's whether we implement it or not. That's
Correct.
a secondary thing. For example, I gave an example of the schools. And those were not government schools. They were private and international schools that we approached. And we said, let's do this. And they said, no. All right? It's okay. And that's the thing, right? It's not that we cannot implement it. It's whether we want to implement it. Of course, it comes down to a few things. Budget, expertise. If we can implement something and if we don't have the right expertise to continue to maintain it, then it's a problem as well.
Yeah.
So it comes down to quite a few things. But I'm sure UNICEF is working on a few things. Maybe just like to share what are the other things that UNICEF is doing that helps on this sort of things.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you were mentioning earlier, bringing everyone together, right? So that's also the idea of the ASEAN ICT Forum on Child Online Protection. So that's one of the forums where there's actually exchange. And especially like if you're looking towards countries like Australia who are much more advanced on child online protection. So I think there's a lot to learn from each other because it's such a fast moving space. Now AI and everything. So I don't think there's one best practice country that we could look towards, and everyone needs to learn from one another. Malaysia, actually, there is a specialized unit in PDRM that looks at internet crimes against children, MyCAC. So that is something that other countries don't necessarily have. But of course, it's not big enough, right? And they made the case themselves in the media. It's I think the awareness of how big an issue that is and how much manpower and investment is actually needed to tackle it is something that, I think it's great we're talking about this.
I know there's so many forums and workshops and conversations, at that level, at that high level. I always wonder what comes from all the learning. What about it? Like, how are we going to use this to actually make an impact?
Yeah.
So I think, as a regular layperson, it's like, great, we have another forum, but how is this going to help our kids?
Yeah, I think that's really the way forward needs to be regulating industry better. Going back to this, we need to make the playground more safe, right? Then rather than keeping children off the playground. So that's where, you need to have safety by design. It's all the technological solutions that you're working on as well.
Well, here's the thing. Sometimes it falls down to that one individual. Let me share a story. When I was in Standard 6, Year 6, and this was a long time ago. This was in 1986. You were not even born yet. And I had this one teacher, and she was so progressive. She actually took one period break. Instead of teaching English that period, she said, you know what? I'm going to do something different. And she kind of did half of that period break to talk to the girls about their changing bodies, because we were 12-year-olds, we were going through puberty, and then she touched on this grooming stuff even back then when no one was talking about it, and then she took half the break to talk to the boys, just because it was a different conversation. Not together. So she felt in her worldview that was better lah.
Yeah.
So you know what? We had that conversation, but it took that one person, and I think she didn't have the headmistress's knowledge on it. But we all benefited from it. Girls and boys from my class that year, 40 years later, I should think, we're still talking about that day that Mrs. Ann Wijasuria pulled us all aside and had that conversation. Sometimes it just takes that one person, doesn't it?
So how do we find more Mrs. Ann?
That's a good question.
And that's all it is. Forums are great. I would love to be in there to hear of hear the conversation, because we need to adapt, we need to grow. You know, especially in something like this where it's so fast going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the problem with this sort of things is that nobody takes action until it's their kids.
Yes.
Right? So until their kids cannot, then only suddenly everybody's like, okay, no, we need to do this, right? So the problem with a lot of guys or people in these platforms or in these ministries and all, kids not yet kena, so there's no urgency to it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's another problem. I'm not wishing ill on anyone, but people need to step up.
But at least what you call this, we need to keep the conversation going. The forums need to happen.
Of course.
You know, and then trickling down, we need to find more Mrs. X.
Yeah.
So what support systems are available, for victims, for parents as well who feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, in Malaysia, I think it's definitely, as you were saying earlier, right? It's, even though it's difficult, we do need to report because it's not just like what happens to my child, but how, you know, is that person then going on to other children, and, you know, so I think reporting with the available channels on the different social media platforms is important. There is Talian HEAL in terms of, you know, if you want further support. And also another helpline, and, you know, maybe we can give all the numbers in as part of the podcast, would be Buddy Bear. So there are some support systems available. I do think at the end of the day, who responds to, you know, the calls, and when there's more support than just, you know, what is required, taking a picture down, but really when there is emotional impact and worse with children, at the end of the day, it's also social workers that step in, right?
And they have to be very well trained.
They have to be very well trained on this in particular as well. And in Malaysia, I mean, it's been a long time, the discussion has been ongoing about professionalizing social work. So all the neighboring countries actually have professionalized social work, so that actually to be a social worker, you have to have, you know, certain requirements so that the quality is there as well. In Malaysia, there's no social work professional bill yet, and that has an impact on the services children and families receive. So that is really important. It's been pending a while. There is now an announcement that this should be passed in Parliament this year. So we're really very supportive of that. And because at the end of the day, it's not just the number you call, it's a person who answers and who provides the support.
You know, I think one of the things that people forget a lot about is the role that the teacher plays. You know, it's so important. I think if you just looked at one of the cases recently, whereby this kid was being abused by her parents, and these are not like, they are not educated, these were engineers and all. When they were upset with her, they'll beat her up and make her sleep in the dog kennel, right? And the person who noticed something was wrong was the teacher, right? And that's the thing, we forget how important it is for teachers to be trained to identify these sort of things. And once they identify it, what do they need to do next? So first thing we need to do is pay teachers more.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
We need to pay teachers more.
Pay teachers more, yes.
Pay teachers more. And second, teachers, as part of their teaching college course, they have to sit down for a course on this. How to identify these red flags? What do you do once you identify this red flag? Who do we complain to? Who do we call? So it's so important for teachers to have that compassion and the desire to want to help children out of this. Imagine this girl, if her teacher didn't step in, up to what age would she continue to be abused?
Yeah.
Right? And it's very interesting sometimes when I sit down with teachers, they understand that some of the kids are going through stuff, but they don't know how to prompt and ask the right questions. Right? And
But do they want to? That's another question.
Some do. But you know, if they ask the wrong question, and I think Saskia can tell this, the minute you ask the wrong question, the child closes up. Right? And to get them to open up again will be very difficult. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. All these frontline people, like teachers, pediatricians, those that actually, you know, have an insight into what's going on in children's lives. I mean, it's really important to be able to read the signs. And I think your point with the teachers, I think there's really a lack of awareness that actually in Malaysia under the Child Act, you're obliged to report if you feel that, if you have indications that, you know, a child is suffering from abuse and exploitation.
So you're obliged to report it. That's good to know. And I think more people, individuals should take it upon themselves to be responsible for young people who, may not have that protection, at home and
because kids
elsewhere.
cannot protect themselves. You have to protect.
Yes.
And I think another thing that Malaysians need to step up in is we always cannot think, it's somebody else's problem, it's somebody else's kid, not my house.
Correct.
Jaga tepi kain sendiri. No, we
Yeah.
cannot have that. We see somebody's kid, help.
Well, Saskia and Shamir, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we learned quite a lot, and we'll add the various numbers, Talian HEAL and all that, that, it's easy for you to have access to in case you do need to take action. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, I'd just like to thank you all for having this session. And again, it's so important to speak about topics like this. And thank you very much for creating the awareness.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having UNICEF on this as well. Thank
Our
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.